It's Thursday, the 22nd of February 2024, and welcome to the Water Action Platform. Now, here at Isle, we know what it's like. You're tired of the constant bad news, worn down by the relentless media focus on all things terrible. Well, our aim is to bring a little hope, a little sunshine into your life with some stories that you might not have heard about through normal media channels. Stories which will lift your spirits and perhaps make you smile. The Water Action Platform is open to all, free at the point of use, and is only possible because of the lovely sponsors listed here. So today we have some wonderful stories. We will hear from a Californian about what it's like to be a seasoned water entrepreneur. We will learn about the Blue Spaces Initiative, which provides support to community projects along water courses. And our And Finally story answers a question that has been bugging me for 47 years. And if you stay to the very end, you'll hear it has a surprising and direct personal link to my very own health. But we start with a story from the United Arab Emirates, all about the collection of fog. And no, when I say fog, I don't mean fats, oils and greases, as I'm prepared to bet my kidneys that most of you, especially those with a wastewater background, initially suspected. No, when I say fog collection, I mean that lovely horizontal precipitation sometimes referred to as mist, or indeed what normal people, i.e. those not in the water sector, would call, well, fog. Now, the fog trial we're about to hear about is one of the many ongoing trial reservoir trials, which last month Joe Burgess gave a wonderful update on. As you no doubt recall, all of the reservoir trials operate according to the same philosophy. A loan is provided to the technology vendor, in this case Permalution, to do a trial on a condition that if it's successful, the tech user, in this case TACA, implements the technology. Now, Permalution's technology will be trialled in a desert environment, and it will provide water for the production of food using passive mist and fog collectors. It requires no purchase power for them to operate. Now, firstly, the technology uses algorithms to predict the best locations. Then it's verified on the ground with water radars. Hardware is installed, and a passive collector harvests moisture from the air. Isle's chief executive, Dr. Ben Tam, met up with the women driving this project for Water in the Desert to hear what they'd been up to.
So, for those back home, can you tell us a little bit about Permalution and who you are?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana Esteves. I am the founder CEO of Permalution, a startup based in Canada working on cloud and fog water collection technology. So as rain is considered vertical precipitation, fog or clouds are considered horizontal precipitation, and we can get up to 3 times more water than with rain. So yes, we are technically milking clouds. And our technology is comprised of 3 units: an algorithm, a set of meteorological sensors, and the fog water collectors, which are the hardware. And this is what allows us to collect the droplets that are suspended in the air, which comprises fog and clouds.
And Inez, let's introduce yourself and your role at TACA.
Yeah, I'm Ines. I'm Vice President for Water in Distribution and Transmission with TACA. And with my water initiative DROP, we brought Tatiana and her fog collectors to the country here in Abu Dhabi, where we will test the fog collectors with Khalifa University, potentially enhance them, and then bring them to a test trial in our farms.
And you had trial reservoir funding. So what are the next steps for you being out here? It's obviously an exciting time.
So the next steps for us is getting our shipment arriving to Abu Dhabi in the next few days or week. And after that, in January, we're going to start the deployment of the project. So the installation of the water radars, which are our modules that measure the fog and clouds and allows us to know what are the estimated yields, the water quality, and some other indicators we need to know in order to place the other portion of the project, which are the fog collectors, which we are going to be installing very soon as well, and taking advantage of the fog season in Abu Dhabi. And yes, tapping into this new water source.
And Inez, in terms of next steps on the TACA side, are you really excited about how fast this can move?
Yes, we are bringing more technologies to the country to test them. We are also looking into a trial with government buildings where we put a bottling plant up together with the water from air machines. We are also looking and working with other research institutes to scale things up in the desert and do something big. So lots of exciting things happening. And I'm very happy to have Tatjana here with the most green technology that you can think of, the fog collectors.
Thank you, Ines and Tatjana. As we heard, that trial is part of an ambitious plan to trial numerous differing water supply technologies. The aim is to diversify the water sources used in the UAE and to do it with as low a carbon footprint as possible. The trial host, Silal, the leading agri-tech food company in the UAE, and their holding company, ADQ. The data from the initial trials will be collected for a 3 to 6 month period. Fog collectors will test the feasibility of large-scale fog and cloud water collection, and we will, of course, keep you appraised of how things go. Our next segment is a sector expert interview. And bearing in mind we always have a focus on new technology, I thought it would be good to hear from a water entrepreneur. Now, what sort of person gives up the security of a proper job and starts up a new business in the water sector? What does it take to make a successful business in this sector? What skills do you need, and how do you keep going when times get tough? Well, to answer these questions, I spoke with Adam Stein, Chief Executive for Advantageous Systems based in California. And yes, that previous photo was him as a rather adorable little boy. In the following segment, you will hear him share what it's like to be a water entrepreneur. Adam, wonderful to be here with you. Let's start. Can you just describe who you are and what you do?
Yes, it's wonderful to be here. So Adam Stein, CEO of Advantageous Systems, water treatment. We have specialty patents and technology related to water treatment with magnetic particles.
Excellent. We've actually showcased you on the Water Action platform previously, and you're obviously
Correct.
doing a Reservoir trial, which has gone very well. So well that we're actually doing a second one, but we're not going to talk about that today. Today is about hearing about the journey of how you became an entrepreneur. But before we get to that, I want to dig under the skin of what makes Adam Stein. So give me in 3 words, tell me how you describe yourself.
I'd say a thinker, doer, and optimist.
Thinker, doer, optimist. You know, I think you've got to be an optimist to be in the water sector, to be selling technology in the water sector. You've kind of got to be all 3 of those, haven't you? But optimism, got to have it.
You
right.
too. You
and
too.
And what about your parents? What do you owe your parents?
So, my parents, I'm a first-generation American. They actually emigrated from the UK. So my father's British and my mom's Israeli, but they emigrated from the UK. And, there's a bit of tenacity in America. And I think first-generation Americans definitely feel that. And I didn't have to pay for schooling and things like that. They definitely helped out there. And I think it's that tenacity. They kind of had a thought that you will be doing something great. It's not even a question. And I think a lot of first generation Americans and first generation across the world, it's just that feeling of, well, we did all this hardship. You're going to have to do something great.
Okay, so we've got a tenacious optimist. This is what we've got. Now, is a tenacious optimist what you need to be a successful entrepreneur? Because you have been a successful entrepreneur. And let's just, for the audience, just take me through a quick potted history of what you've done to get to where you are. And if you feel comfortable, what are the lessons you've learned? The things that went right and the things that went wrong.
Sure. I'd say the water industry is we started as a medical diagnostic company, and this was in 2008.
So nothing to do with the water sector?
Nothing to do with the water sector at all. I studied neuroscience in undergrad, biotechnology, biochemistry, and business in graduate school. Worked in the FDA for a small period of time, got into nanomaterials, didn't think of water at all. Okay. And then in the 2008 crisis, when we needed somewhere along the lines of $1 billion to get our medical diagnostic to market, I thought, well, what can we do? And the National Science Foundation in the U.S. they gave us a grant to kind of bring our technology to the water sector. And that's how we got into the water sector.
Okay, so it wasn't strategic. This was fortuitous. It was opportunistic. You fell.
It was fortuitous.
Okay.
It was fortuitous. And then ever since then, we stayed in the water sector, and we started figuring out different markets, markets like in Central California with farmers, different regions that really needed the water sector to care about them. And nobody was really helping them with their solutions, be it removing a selenium or arsenic or selective, removal of technology, or the fact that they couldn't use reverse osmosis. They were inland, all of these different issues that came up that nobody was solving. And it was quite exciting, actually, to think that, hey, here's a sector, we all drink water, we all need it, but we're not innovating in certain regions. So,
which bits were easier than you thought, and which bits were harder? Because it's interesting, because you weren't dealing with municipalities at that stage, were you?
Correct.
Were you? No.
No, we were dealing with kind of quasi-utilities. These are water districts in Central California, but for the most part, we're dealing with farmers. We're dealing with individuals who own quite large acreage of almond farms and pistachios predominantly.
Okay,
and
I'm a farmer. I've got a field. I need to water my crops. I don't water my crops. I haven't got any money. The water I'm drawing out of the ground is polluted. I need a solution. Galloping over the horizon comes Adam with his team and his solutions. And so it's a no-brainer, isn't it, for me? So it must have been easy. These things must have been flying off the shelves. Was it that easy?
It was not easy at all. One of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur is that, you have to get things to market, right? Regardless of what sector you're in, you have to make money, right? Otherwise, you're not in business. And it was not easy. But at that time, nobody was doing reverse osmosis. Nobody was doing anything for the farmers in Central California. It was just sand filters and let's take out debris before we irrigate our fields. They really didn't have technology out there to reduce TDS or to remove different contaminants the way we do today. And at that time, we said, well, let's do whatever we can. And we built actually the second largest desalination system in Central California. And we did pre-treatment to remove specific contaminants. We figured out, well, boron's an issue, and selenium's an issue, and arsenic's an issue. And let's tackle these individual issues.
And I remember seeing, it was, 5-6 years ago, I remember seeing you present at a tank forum. And the video you showed, you were actually doing algal blooms removals with the nanoparticles. I remember being blown away. It was such an impressive piece of footage, and it was like, okay, I get it. It's very powerful. As an because there's lots of entrepreneurs in the water sector who are struggling. They're struggling because the industry moves quite slowly. It's like all infrastructure sectors. It's a slow-moving industry. Now, you said that you're an optimist, and you said that you've got tenacity, and I suspect those are two things that every entrepreneur needs. What advice would you give to Adam Stein in 2005 before you'd even moved into this?
The advice that I would give is get somebody to pay you rather than trying to get the grants or the other funding. Get somebody to really say, you know what, we like your product, we will pay you X, whatever that is, early on, first year in business. I think that's the biggest challenge, that you get into this valley where, other people want you to do a pilot, you get, a little bit of money for a pilot and everything like that. That's great. Take that money, do the pilot. But what is most important is get that final end user to pay you for the product early.
Yeah, grant money can become a bit like a drug. I do liken it to it's like a drug, because you've got to service the grant, you've got to write reports to feedback, and universities are terribly good at that. But then you spend so much time servicing the grant that you actually don't spend time talking to clients and working out what you actually need to build a business that isn't dependent upon grants. Am I right? Am I sharing the same?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you need as an entrepreneur?
You need to have a good team. I think that's the other thing that you underestimate until later on in your career. You need to have a team that you could depend on, and you need to let them do what they do best. I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like you have to do a lot on your own,
I'm the one who walks water. Everybody else just carries me. Yeah, you're right.
And I think if you think about, hey, this is what I could delegate to this individual, and I trust this individual, they'll trust you and they'll do better work. And I think that that's something that it took me time to learn.
We now come to a lovely story about community collaboration with something called Blue Spaces. Now, Blue Spaces is a program which provides funding and support to enhance watercourses and the land adjacent to them. So early this month, I met up with Zoe Frogbook from Northumbrian Water here in the UK, and she told me more about the Blue Spaces program. So I'm here with Zoe Frogbook from Northumbrian Water here in the UK. Now, Zoe's got this really interesting background. She's been with utilities, she's been in academia, hell, she's even been with the regulator. But Zoe, tell us, what is it you're doing today at Northumbrian Water?
Hi, Piers. So, yes, today I am Head of Environment and Sustainability for Northumbrian Water. So that's quite a big role. It kind of covers everything we do as a business, but I'm really kind of responsible for making sure that we're doing the right things for the environment and that we're looking at our sustainability as a business.
Excellent. And can you describe yourself in 3 words for me, please?
3 words. Dedicated, organised and active, probably.
Dedicated, organised and active. You sound like my wife. That's what my wife is. That's very good. And,
I'm not.
No, that's true. We should clarify that early on. And we'd like to know a little bit more about you, just a secret. What's the latest podcast that you've been listening to?
My guilty pleasure, which I listen to on the way to work, is You're Dead to Me, which is it's a podcast about history, and I've learned such amazing things on my drive to work about history, from the history of high heels to actually kind of key people in history, and they even give you a quiz at the end to make sure that you've been listening.
We should do that here on the Water Action platform. We'll do a quiz at the end of them and make sure people have listened. What did Zoe talk about? Well, what did Zoe talk about? So the reason we're doing this is because I contacted your chief executive, Heidi Mottram, about a project that I thought, an environment project that I thought might be of interest to Northumbrian Water. And she came back saying, yes, that looks very interesting, but we've got something called Blue Spaces. And suddenly this whole new world opened up around Blue Spaces. So what is Blue Spaces?
So Blue Spaces is a programme that we started in 2020. It was actually inspired by our customers. Our customers gave us some feedback that they wanted to see wider improvements to kind of what we class as the water environment, so anything close to a surface water. And what it really does is it provides support to make improvements to that environment. And that kind of improvements could be access, improving the access to the area, improving the facilities at the area. It could be improving water quality, or it could be improving biodiversity. And we normally like it to tick 2 of the 3 boxes out of that. And it's been a really successful project so far. We've had a really good number of projects into this. We set some quite ambitious goals for ourselves. We wanted to see 250 kilometres improved of what we call the Blue Spaces by 2025. So in 5 years, we wanted to improve 250 kilometres.
And just to be clear, is it about watercourses, or is it about the land adjacent to watercourses, or is it courses?
It's the land adjacent to watercourses. So it's not necessarily in the watercourse, it's the land around it. So it includes like wetlands,
planting trees and preserving grasslands and things like that. Okay. And I know you've got some staggering statistics. Can you just rattle some of those off for us?
Right, so yeah, we have. So far with the projects that we supported, so bear in mind that we are one of the funders for these. But we really do help kind of make these projects happen. We've planted over 6,000 trees, improved about 52 hectares of grassland for the biodiversity benefits. So we're starting to see some really good environmental benefits, but there's a social side as well, which is really important. So we're doing this for our communities. And through those projects that we funded so far, we've managed to, because we gather some stats about what the projects have been able to do. We've had over 10,000 children engaging with those sites, over 4,000 adults kind of come into those sites. So there's a really massive...
And that's getting the children to come along. That's getting the children to come to the site and do the tree planting with you. It's that sort of...
Or just experiencing nature, being able to access nature, because being able to connect people to nature is really important. So what we're able to do by kind of improving pathways, by planting more trees, by looking at kind of what we can do within the watercourse in terms of water quality, that's all helping create a really nice experience for children and encourage people to come to the sites as well.
Excellent. Well, I love the fact that you launched this. It sounds like you launched this either just before the pandemic or even in the pandemic. 2020, when did the pandemic begin? It was about then, wasn't it?
2019 was when it's kind of started, but lockdown was 2020. So yes, we started this in challenging times, and
not
just very much.
Sorry, carry on.
So we work very much with partners on this. So we do site visits as well. So it was always quite challenging at the start to do that.
As Zoe noted at the end, all of the activities Zoe shared were done during the pandemic. It throws up a fascinating question about whether the pandemic actually gave us more time to focus on doing the really meaningful activities, because we were no longer commuting to and from work or spending time in those meetings, which, let's be brutally honest, we all sit in and wonder why we're attending. Anyway, if you thought Blue Spaces sounded like a model that you would like to emulate or learn from, please let me know. I'm certain Zoe would be delighted to hear from you and would willingly share her experiences further. And finally, we address that important question: what is it that makes your pea yellow? Now, before we answer this, I have to say that this story genuinely takes me back to when I was 7 in 1977. We've been having a discussion at school about bodies, and one of my more mischievous friends, Jason Lang, asked this particular cheeky question of the teacher, Mrs. Williams, and she was terrifying. I remember her answer, given in a tone that was designed to end any further debate, being, "Because that's the colour your body makes it." I vividly recall my 7-year-old brain feeling that this was an unsatisfactory answer to a genuinely intriguing question that my mate Jason had asked. Well, now, 47 years later, I can finally get the answer. Jason, or indeed Mrs. Williams, if you're watching, I hope it helps. Now, it's been known for more than 125 years that a compound called urobilin is responsible for urine's yellow colour, but it was unclear until now exactly how it's created. As we all know, urine colour can change due to hydration or medication, or indeed diet, as anyone who's eaten a lot of pickled beetroot can no doubt attest. However, for the average healthy person, it is a shade of yellow. According to a new study published in Nature Microbiology, researchers have finally uncovered a long-standing mystery of what leads to that yellow colour. And as always, we've saved you the trouble of finding the journal and having to wade through it. We have extracted the key information here. So, pay close attention because there might be a test. This is a representation of the heme degradation pathway. Key human enzymes are labelled in grey text, and as red blood cells degrade, the pigment bilirubin is created as a byproduct. Experts have known for decades that compounds in the gut turn bilirubin into the compound urobilin. But what they didn't know was what enzyme or collection of enzymes turned bilirubin into urobilin. Gut microbes can be challenging to study, but with advancements in genome sequencing, we've now discovered a new enzyme, bilirubin reductase. Now, what they discovered was that bilirubin reductase is present in healthy adults, but not in newborns and not in adults with inflammatory bowel disease. This graph is particularly fascinating. It shows that jaundice is highest in individuals who are missing bilirubin reductase. In some disease states, high levels of bilirubin may result in brain damage and could even lead to death. So these results will help us study the links between gut microbiome and conditions such as jaundice and inflammatory bowel disease. Now, this research is particularly fascinating for me from a personal perspective because I had a health check just before Christmas and it confirmed that I have elevated levels of bilirubin in my blood. This is apparently not uncommon and it's called Gilbert's syndrome. It is apparently hereditary, so thank you, parents, and I was told by my doctor that it simply means that my body is less able to break down the yellow pigments in my blood. The doctor told me, with a jaunty smile, that sometimes the whites of your eyes might be a little more yellow than white, which felt like something I could happily live with. Having read this paper, I feel now I should monitor my pee a little more closely, although, looking again at this chart, I'm pleased to say that I've never managed to even get to orange. With that, we come to the end of this month's broadcast, and I once again thank today's contributors and, of course, our fantastic sponsors. The next broadcast will be on March the 28th at the usual times. Until then, keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.